Hello, and welcome to the Roll Well. I'm Bridget. I'm joined by Loren and the man who makes the magic of how our podcast comes together, and that's Dan. And I'm very excited that he gets to join our conversation today as we bring in some holiday cheer. We are thrilled to have you joining us. Now, as you listen to us, you might be doing some things like scrubbing the coffee pot, ignoring that smell at the litter box, do you think? Or even listening while you're in the shower, getting ready for your day. Whatever you might be doing, we had the well being of rural areas like yours in mind when we began building this episode. We know that agriculture has its challenges, but we are right alongside you and cannot wait to connect and inspire one generation and legacy to the next. Oh, Loren, do you hear those little sleigh bells ringing? It's
I
almost
do.
Christmas.
It's almost I do. And I love Christmas. And I think I've told this on the podcast before. I'm in early November. And interesting enough, as we introduce Dan, it actually starts with a bit of a Christmas story. I don't know if Dan, if you remember, but Dan's family and my family, we were homeschooling at the same time. And Dan and his wife, Carrie, had us over around, it was early Christmas. And I got there, it was, I think, late October, early November, and there was Christmas music playing. And that was like the glue that held our families right away.
Yes, there's always Christmas music in our home. Yeah.
That's awesome. Dan, why don't you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself and if anybody's got a bit of a funny story, we're going to play a Would You Rather game in just a minute. But we'd love to introduce Dan. Dan and his wife Carrie have been longtime friends of my husband and I. But beyond that, Dan is a wealth of wisdom for the Rural Well podcast, and we're so excited that he gets to, or that we have the opportunity to host him today. He's a super busy businessman, and I'm sure he'll tell you a few of those things, and put a shameless plug in there for the coffee merchant, I'm sure.
I think you already did that, but thank you. Yeah, well, I am Dan Thomson, and yeah, I live in Prince Edward Island, Canada. And yes, so I am producing this podcast, and I've done other podcasts myself, which I enjoy. And oh man, going way back, I did the Frequency podcast, which was basically a Christian music podcast, but I help other people along the way. But I've also been and still am a pastor in Prince Edward Island. Started in Ontario and moved out this way. And I'm also a project manager, so I work for mostly in the U.S., some in Canada, projects with utility companies, which keeps me hopping around the world a bit. And but we live in New Glasgow, PEI, which is beautiful, and I can look to the right and see the ocean, which is a blessing because we just moved properties here. And yeah, I'm a father of three and grandfather of two, and I'm married to Carrie. And yes, we've been friends with Loren and her family for seems like a really long time.
Long time.
And
Long
we've had a
time.
lot of fun together. And I'm just so happy we can stay connected this way. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I have a question for Dan.
Yeah.
How is it as a pastor? Is there a natural bridge to being the podcast producer, wanting to be part of podcasts? Is it simply because you have such phenomenal listening skills and you are able to decipher what your podcast hosts are trying to say and put it in a very straightforward format? How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my wife would say I'm a talker. And so I've had to take heed of her commentary. You know, we have a rule, or had a rule through our whole marriage. If we're in a public setting, or I'm on the stage or whatever, she has a tug. If she tugs me, it's shut up. Basically, I'm embarrassing her. And I've actually taken that philosophy into meetings, into podcasting, into radio, all the things that I've been a part of. And I am always trying to get to the point where, what am I trying to say? And when I listen to you guys, there's a lot of banter that goes on. Is it profitable, right? I mean, but then you have to balance what is fun, where you just want to leave it all, and not be too polished. I find that these
Mhm.
days in the podcast world, or radio, or YouTube, or whatever the platform, the more realistic and the more real, because you can fake realistic, but you can't fake being real. It's getting the wisdom over the years to know how to naturally let conversations flow, but then pull out things that are not necessary that just distract from what you're trying to accomplish. So because you guys deal with heavy content all the time, not all the time, but it's all interwoven through these conversations. It's knowing what to leave on the cutting room floor. That can be difficult, but it is an ongoing learning process. I never stop learning in this.
Dan says casual and genuine. I really could have shown up in my bathrobe today. Is that like, is that
Wisdom would be don't use
How
your
genuine
video.
that would be.
here's Bridget? This is the way her morning really started. She's still in her bathrobe, puttering around the house, going, what happened to my time today?
I have had, a nice shirt and track pants on for business meetings many times. No one can see below.
I think,
Yes.
as we get into the Christmas season, I'm always struck at how quickly it passes. When my kids were little, and Dan, you'll remember because we were homeschooling together. And so we'd get together and do homeschooling crafts, and there was all sorts of activities, and it felt like it stretched out for such a long time. But here we are, into December. And it just seems like the time passes so quickly.
No,
I
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and those of us who now have grandkids, and our kids have grown, is there a piece of you that kind of misses when you had little kids running around doing all those other Christmas activities, or do you enjoy this season?
I feel like I'm in a strange transition time because my kids are all grown up, but with the
Mhm.
grandkids now, and Becca, who's here having a nap right now, is at the toddler stage. She's walking around. So I feel like she's going to force us to slow down, so that we
Yeah.
can follow her. We
Yeah.
have, I think, because of the busyness, and of course, being a pastor, right? These times are the hardest and busiest times of being a pastor. We want everyone else to enjoy it, but we don't have time for that, at
Mhm.
least in our heads, because
Yeah.
we're trying to, have an experience or organize things. It tends to be just organized chaos in December. And then
Yeah.
when you hit December 26th, you just pass out.
Okay, so on that note, we're going to play a Would You Rather game. I'm going to ask some questions and see, Bridget and Dan, what your response is.
Mhm.
Okay, first question. It's the essence of, I think, Christmas: real tree or fake tree?
There is a ban on real Christmas trees at my house due to the needle drop incident of 2007. And so, because every time someone would shut a door, all you'd hear on the packages was tink, 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 tink. And I vacuumed up Christmas needles until Easter when the Easter grass debacle began. And then I continued to vacuum after that. And so we're done with both here. I have a beautiful fake tree. I love putting ornaments all over that tree. Ornaments are my thing at Christmas. And I have a fantastic, smells like real Christmas tree spray. And every morning I walk by and I coat the tree in it and I move on with my day. And that's my middle ground.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What about you, Dan?
We love the real trees, but I agree it is so much work. And we're surrounded by them, outside.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of farmers, a lot of farming communities have that. So like, why would I cut it down? It's right there. Um, and then and again, we ran a Christmas store, so we had so many fake trees
Uh-huh.
because it had to be all year round. So we just decided that we're going to move our Christmas tree store trees into our house.
Oh,
So
cool.
we have done the real ones, but we've moved on to fake.
So our family, we do a bit of both because we like to start Christmas like November the 1st or October 31st. We now have a fake one. We always had a real one, always until a few years ago. I don't know if I've told the story in the real well, so if you've heard it, forgive me. But our living room is quite tall. I think it's like got a 19-foot ceiling, and so we decided to go and get a real tree. This one looked like an appropriate size out in the field. It was taller, but it looked appropriate. And we cut it down and we lugged it up. We threw it into the truck. We lugged it up there. And the guys were like, we cannot shake that tree. Like, it's too heavy. It's too big. Just take it home. Have the best. And so there we were, a number of us trying to push up and I mean, it is really heavy. We've dragged the thing in. We flopped it out of the truck. I was like, oh no. And my husband's like, it's not going to break. It's just fine. And it was raining out. And so we dragged it in, and there's probably about four of my kids. We're all kind of trying to hold this tree up, and we're trying to tie it back, and we're trying to get set in the thing. And I reach my hand in and I peel apart the tree branches branches and there's two beady eyes peeking right back at me. There was a nest of mice inside the tree. And that thing was dedicated. I mean, it rode from Bothwell, which is a 45-minute drive, in the back of our pickup after getting felled, thrown in the back of the pickup, thrown off the back of the pickup, and then dragged into the house. And there's this mouse. And that was the year. That was the year. It just changed everything. I was like, I was on Marketplace looking for Christmas trees. So, but we still do get a real one later on, closer to the beginning of December. And we call it our Victorian tree. So we've got these fake kind of lights, and we do popcorn and oranges and things like that on it. So it's kind of fun. Yeah, it's kind of fun, but it's small enough that it gets shook out right good before it comes into the house. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You just said that like an Islander.
I did. I think you're bringing it out of me. It's
right. Right. Good. Yep.
That's right. I love the island dialect. Every time we go back to the island. So my husband's from Prince Edward Island, Bridget. And every time we go back to the island, you just pick it up right quick.
Oh yeah.
It's right. Slip you out.
Yes, exactly.
That really leads.
Enunciate the T's at the end. Out. Yeah.
That truly is part of the discussion we want to have today, which comes to emotional language and how you fall back into languages when you return to Christmas is all about childhood. So sometimes you return to your place in the family. You think about all of the way that you talk to each other. Personally speaking, I'm from an area in North Dakota where we have a lot of Germans from Russia. My family got there in the mid 1880s. And so it doesn't take long for me to fall back into my accent, just like I was back in McIntosh County from home. And that's the way they all talk. So it happens, whether you're from PEI or whether you're from the south central part of North Dakota.
So true. So true. You mentioned emotional language there, and it's interesting to me because so often we misunderstand what the experience of people, how they're feeling, because we don't talk about those key points. I remember this little girl came into my office one day and she was just a ball of tears. And she said, "I'm so overwhelmed." And I said, "Oh my goodness, those are such big feelings. Tell me, what does overwhelmed mean?" And she said, "I don't know, but my mommy says it all the time." But there's some truth in that, right? Like so often we use words to try and express how we're feeling, but we don't really get transparent enough to say what we're feeling or how we're actually feeling. And so I always kind of encourage people to come back to the 4 basic emotions, which is mad, sad, glad, and scared. So I'm curious, Bridget, when you hear that, or Dan, when you hear that, what are your thoughts when you talk about like basic emotions? How does that factor into relationships at Christmas time?
I really think it has a lot to do with the fact that we let the emotions make us overwrought. We don't have to. There are some things that we can cut out and that we can focus on the positive, and that's going to make our holiday season so much better. But overall, for our language at the holidays, think in words of kindness. What are the words that you want to hear that should be kind to you, that you can reflect back to others? I think that's my favorite thing about Christmas. We remember to be kind.
Yeah, I was going to say the thing that comes to mind is it's connected to what we say and do, but it's nostalgia. Nostalgia is always the thing that we revert back to. Our kids want to go and look at the, previous, footage when they were young and what did we do in this Christmas and that Christmas, and go through the years. And it tends to bring out the best in us when we talk about the nostalgic aspects of all the different things, even being, living with in different areas where we had old friendships and we haven't talked to them in a while, and it makes you want to go and text them or say hi. So yeah, I find nostalgia for us slows everything down, and then it tends to just bring out the kindness because you're always frustrated and busy and doing things, and when things slow down, it gets a lot easier.
I think that one of the things we often talk about is do unto others, and we hear that this time of the year. When you use that example, is there something that's happened at a family Christmas where you think, maybe we could have changed that language just a little bit. So we could have do unto others. So we could have done a do unto others versus the way it really did turn out. I don't know if you guys have some examples, but I have one that's a little bit funny if that maybe isn't fitting for this.
Yeah, that would be totally funny.
Yeah,
The one
go
that
for
comes
it.
to mind for me would be sarcasm, right? How often people jump into the use of sarcasm and how damaging it can be without people intending to be. Like, I don't think in my experience, it's not like somebody's intending to be hurtful, but it ends up being hurtful because of the use of sarcasm. But I want to hear your story.
Well, I think you're right. We shouldn't hide behind sarcasm as, oh, I'm just being funny because really you're not. Um, this is when my one of my grandmas was still alive and she was well into her 80s. And we always laughed that grandma lost her filter between her brain and her mouth and just whatever came out was what she was thinking. And at one time we walked into her a little apartment and she looked at my sister and she said, "Did you get a haircut?" And my sister said, "No, I haven't." And she said, and grandma looked at her and said, "Well, you should." And I think grandma was trying in her way to be helpful, but
Mhm.
maybe that could have come out a little bit differently. So when we are at these giant family gatherings or even the small church groups and we're feeling so overwhelmed and so overwrought, maybe we should just think that language through before we use it.
A little pause is does the world a good. And I think sometimes we get into those situations when we feel a little bit more overwhelmed. We're expecting company, the house has to be clean, the presents have to be wrapped, or whatever those expectations are. And so, are there ways that we can build into our schedule ways of not feeling overwhelmed? Yeah, I'm sure there are. Ultimately, we find ourselves in those places. And I'm cognizant of the people who are like, this is my first Christmas without my husband, or this is my first Christmas. So there's where my kids aren't coming home for Christmas, right? And so there's Christmas can be really hard for some people, and so in those situations where it's not just the expectations of Christmas, but it's the longing of Christmas as well. um Dan will know this. I think about sometimes the Valley of Becca. It's a story in the Old Testament where it's known as the Valley of Tears. And I think for some people, we can slide into that valley, right? We can slide into that valley. And so we have we as difficult as those opportunities are, if we can give space for the fact and change our expectations for ourselves, knowing that we're in a hard space, a hard time, it makes communication much easier. We're less likely to be sarcastic. We're less likely to enter into those conversations where there's no kind of life or no growth from.
I also find that we have to be a little bit more self-aware around this time where it kind of exposes the loneliness in people. There's a lot of people that don't, I feel so blessed. I got, family want to come to our house and hang out, and I know people that just don't have family. So the last thing I want to do is be overly exuberantly happy with everybody, telling everybody how amazing my my life is. And they're like, "Well, thanks a lot." Because I do, right? I do tend to not realize what's coming out as positive and it's being taken negative. So
Mm.
we do have to be aware that, you can be generous in your time and your efforts with people, even if it's a card, just to say, "Hey, I know you're having a hard time," because people ask me, my mom passed away last year, and it was her birthday yesterday. And my wife asked me, "How do you feel about it being your mom's birthday?" And she's gone. For me, it's not tears. For me, it's the remembering. And again, that's why I said nostalgia, because my mom was the one that forced our family, even though my father, being a sarcastic Scottish person, would force him to go to his family Christmas Eve. They're all drinking and no one really cared, but she still
Mhm.
forced our family to come to build traditions for our memories as children. And she went above and beyond, even through the hard relationships, to be kind to my nana and papa, and to go and to come home. But she went through those times for us to give us memories as children. And I don't even remember the bad stuff. I know it was bad,
Right.
but I still remember. So I'm thankful that my mom tried to build those traditions, the family traditions, even through the hard times.
We so often want to live in a Hallmark movie. We don't have to because Exactly what you said, Dan. Our kids will remember things that we have no idea made an impression on them. And they can be little. It doesn't have to be a massive effort. And yet they can still find that that wondrous feeling of Christmas. And especially if we remember the real the real reason we're celebrating Christmas, right? And as
Mhm.
Christians, the three of us, that's our focus. That's what we want to talk about the most. This year I didn't do a Christmas card. I normally do, and it's a big list, and I enjoy it. And even my kids sent pictures saying, "Are we putting together the family card this year? Here's my photo that I want." And I just didn't get to it for a number of reasons. But what I have realized is as I scroll through my Christmas card list every so often, I think of things that have happened in the last year. Like you said, I have a close friend. She lost her husband this year. I'm
Mm.
just going to drop her a text message and say, "How are you today?
Mhm.
Is your day all right?" Because I think she needs that more than she needs a picture of my my family.
Exactly.
So maybe that's the emotional language that I can do this year is just reading through my Christmas card list and thinking about who might need that moment of uplifting.
Yeah, I think we live in the loneliest period of time. Even though we're
Yes.
surrounded by
Mhm.
people and we have opportunities to connect, we're actually really lonely people. And myself, I have felt because we've been going through some significant, trials with one of our foster gals. It's a lonely journey sometimes.
Mhm.
I don't want to put a damper on Christmas. I love Christmas, but for some people it's lonely. And I think about when we talk about our language and our communication and how critical it is that we slow down long enough to really see how people are doing and to have those hard conversations sometimes.
And I
Um,
do think technology's made us a bit lazy, because
yeah,
we have 20 different ways to communicate, so we do them even less. Because it's the perception of convenience means I can do it later.
yeah, yeah, that's right. So this is our challenge to our listeners is to put down the cell phone and go and visit somebody, right? To write a letter, to be really active and just connecting with somebody. Maybe, as Dan said, a person from nostalgia, a person from the past, but understand those relationships and those opportunities to connect with people is really what this Christmas season is all about. So
Yeah, and if I
we,
can make a quick suggestion, and this is what we did
Mhm.
back in Sarnia,
yeah,
was we decided to put our devices down because when you're hosting, you can't. You just don't have time. You're either baking, cooking, heating up drinks, whatever. If you're hospitable, you're not distracted. So we found that if we just open our home to even to just the neighbors, or if you're in a farming community, just call a few people and they'll spread the word if there's free food, and just open your doors. Nothing super planned. Just say, hey, we're going to be open from this time to this time. And then you can't be distracted because you're filling cups. you know,
Mhm.
that's
I, I,
awesome.
I have found that hospitality allows you to focus in,
Yeah.
especially on the people that walk in the door.
Oh, but we are at the point where we love to share a quote. And actually, Dan had something in mind today that I would like to ask him to bring forward.
Yeah, a very simple quote. It was Will Rogers, and he just said, the farmer has to be an optimist. And I thought that was very fitting because all they can do is hope and pray and trust. And you don't know what the weather is going to be for your crop. So you have to be an optimist, or else you wouldn't plant the crop in the first place.
We are at such a crux for farming at the end of the year because you're coming off a season, you're looking at your profit and loss statement, you're thinking, did we make it? Did we not? Is it worth it? What should we do? But you also know that the calendar is going to flip into a new year and a new season, and you think about planting again, and the optimism just springs forth. So I can understand why there's some mixed feelings as we get towards this time of the year for farmers, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, I think sometimes I think optimism is such an incredible gift we give ourselves and one another. And yet I also think vulnerability is an equal gift we give one another. But Dan, you're right. Like as we think towards the future as the spring, I think one of the things, especially in, for me living in Southwestern Ontario, December, January, February, it's pretty cloudy, it's pretty snowy, it's pretty dark. We lived in Red Lake, Ontario, and it was amazing because it'd be minus 50 out, but the sun was always shining. Like it was beautiful. And one of the things that I look most forward to is, of course, we usually begin lambing season in January. And so newborn life in January, it forces me to get out to the barn and to get that fresh air and enjoy it. But it's starting to plan my seed purchase from Vessi Seeds in PEI, little shameless plug for Vessi.
Just down the road from here.
Just down the road. That's right. And, and so I think there's that portion of us that take a deep breath, enjoy this moment as best you can, and allow that hope for the future to grow.
Now, I don't want anyone to leave without a smile on their face. And part of that is a question that I can pose that brings answers from us, but we hope to elicit answers from the listeners as well. And it's not always that someone responds on our social media pages, but they might send me a private message to the questions that we ask. And we encourage you to do that, however you want to communicate. So, because we all live in snowy areas, but we have listeners from around the world, and everybody gets rain at some point. So, if that rain could fall in any scent, what would you like the scent to be?
Oh.
Now, most of us like the smell of rain, period, because it's just such a renewal and a clean smell that we get.
Yeah.
But what if it was different?
I think for me, it'd be the smell of the ocean because I miss that. And even talking with Dan, I'm like, oh yeah, the ocean's just outside your door. Like I think that would be one. But in wintertime, it would probably be more like apple cider, mulled apple cider or something like that, right? Like that cinnamon and allspice and cloves and that mixture. My kids, I don't use a lot of air fresheners or anything because I'm allergic to scents. But what I can do is I put oranges and cloves and cinnamon and nutmeg in a pot with water and leave it simmering on the stove. And it just fills our house with this really nice Christmassy scent. So right now around Christmas time, I would say Christmas scent.
No, that's cool because my daughter-in-law actually used to sell simmer pots in our store. And it was basically the ingredients you listed, which is yeah. For me, I like what you said, Loren, but I like subtleness because, if there's a lot of rain, you don't want to be overwhelmed. And honestly, just vanilla, the smell of vanilla in baking and things like that. And for some reason, I always go to vanilla ice cream and vanilla, the donuts have to be vanilla as opposed to chocolate. It's just the way my brain works. I have no idea why. I just like vanilla.
You and Ken are so much alike. That's why you guys were such good friends. Such good
yes.
Because he's the same way, vanilla everything. And like, even if you go to like Wendy's and you get one of their Frosties, he wants a vanilla Frosty. I'm like, what is that? That's disgusting.
Yeah, I'll go to an ice cream shop like Holman's in Summerside here, and they have, homemade ice cream and all these different flavors, and I'll get vanilla. They look at me like, excuse me? Yeah, I'm pretty boring. I guess that's the word.
Vanilla scented rain.
I don't think that's boring. And frankly, I think, there's a couple of things here. I don't think that's boring. And I think that vanilla brings us back to that homey feeling, right? It's in the scent of baking cookies. It's probably somehow in the perfume that grandma wore when she gave you a hug. Whatever the case is, I think vanilla is just an overall scent that really brings good memories out for people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I would take the vanilla scented rain. Fun fact, if you've ever visited a Disney park and you walk past their bakery shops on their Main Street, USA, etc., they may not always have cookies baking 24 hours a day, but you smell them because they pump the scent of vanilla and cookies baking into the air as you walk by.
No way!
You always have the scent. And it brings out those memories.
Yep.
Hopefully it triggers a hunger. So you come in and buy.
Yeah, it's actually very wise. Yeah.
It sounds like somebody's trying to sell a house. When you go to sell a house and you put a fresh loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it wouldn't work for you, Loren, because you're allergic to a lot of scents. But But yeah, it does trick the brain. It does. A smell will bring you to a memory or a place that you wouldn't think otherwise. Yeah.
That's so cool. Wow,
Well,
everybody.
I hope that all of these memories and all of these scents, whether it's the scent of Christmas in Lauren's kitchen, the vanilla that we all share the love of, I hope all those things greet everyone. And I hope that soft and kind emotional language greets you throughout the holidays too.
Thanks, everyone. Merry Christmas. See you next time.
Take care, everyone. Merry Christmas.